So lesson 24, we will be in Exodus 19. That's pretty much where we're going to hang out for the rest of the morning here. We're getting to Mount Sinai and the stuff going on there. This was a fun one for me to go through. I asked Rochelle, I was reading through it, I was like, wow, this is just different than I remembered. I haven't sat down and read through this intentionally for a while. And so when I was doing it, I was like, oh, I was remembering this wrong. Like I just had it different in my head. So I asked Rochelle, like, hey, Rochelle, what do you, tell me this story just without looking anything up or whatever. Just tell me the story. And she started up and she was totally off too. I was like, oh, it's not just me. So I'm thinking probably it'll be just a kind of a fun time going through it together this morning. It's one of those. It turns out I'm heavily influenced by my culture around me. Go figure. But like, you know, the thing about like, well, what's the inside of a whale look like when you think of the story of Jonah? And like most Americans would think of the scene in Pinocchio where he's in his little raft. Like most people think, oh, the inside of a whale. And we think of that because of a movie that was put out, I don't know how many years ago, but it really impacts how we look at a story like that. And I think the same thing here with how I've seen this portrayed has definitely influenced my thinking more than what the Bible actually says, just because I've seen visual things about it. But before we get into that, we'll just do a quick couple of review questions. From last week's lesson, what has been the attitude of the people towards Moses and God when encountering difficulties so far? Grumbling? Complaining? Mutiny? Outright. Why are we following this guy, right? Pretty quick. They've been quick to complain and doubt. With the Red Sea, why did you lead us out here to die, right? And then they're brought through. Then, well, why did you leave us out here to die of thirst? Well, then why did you leave us out here to die of starvation? Well, it's quick to complain. That's kind of what we've seen so far. That's what we've seen of them. What does this show us about God's chosen people? They're normal.
They're human.
They're human. Going with the lessons where we see they're children of Adam, right? God says you are children of Adam. All of Adam's descendants are born in sin. They are sinful people. They're at enmity with me. They're really on the side of Satan now. Like they've aligned themselves with Satan, and we see that. Like that's the reaction we see here. God engages with these people, and they engage with him in a way that says, oh yeah, you are sinful children of Adam. You are deserving of judgment. You're naturally opposed to God. Like every little hiccup that comes, they divert right away to disrespecting God, dishonoring God, not believing God, angry at God. Very quickly they go that route. And that is just consistent with the story we've seen so far. So no surprise there. But it's just, again, we see that. Why is God continuing to engage with them and show them grace? Say that one louder, Beth. Because he's God. That's an attribute of him, right? We see them, who they are, is grumbling, complaining, bad people. God is the opposite, right? God is good. God is looking for their benefit. He's wanting to help them, even though that's not what they deserve. Like, every time you see when I look at how I would react to a people like that, it's very different. That's because even in my skewed perspective of justice, I'd say, you guys are not deserving of good things. You're deserving of punishment. Like, when my children act the way that the Israelites are acting, they get punished. Like, it's very disrespectful. It's very wrong to behave the way that they are. But God is loving. God is merciful. He's patient. He's kind. God is faithful, right? He will always do what he said he will do. He said, I am going to provide a savior. I'm going to do it through this line. I'm going to raise you up a nation. I am going to do these things. And so he's going to do it because he's faithful regardless of what he's dealing with or who he's dealing with. He will be true to what he has communicated. But it is grace. It is undeserved. The Israelites have done nothing so far to merit God saying, oh, this group deserves me to come in and engage them special. They're so good. They're so worthy of my attention that I will part the Red Sea for them. They're so deserving of my goodness that I will give them bread. No, that's never the case so far, and it's not ever going to be presented as that. So that's where we are here. So they've been kind of grumbling, complaining right through. Go to Exodus 19:1. Exactly 2 months after the Israelites left Egypt, they arrived in the wilderness of Sinai. After breaking camp at Rephidim, they came to the wilderness of Sinai and set up camp there at the base of Mount Sinai. Go to Exodus 3:12. See, didn't just stumble upon this place. Exodus 3:12, God talking to Moses initially at the burning bush. They're talking, and there's this whole protestation that's going on, and Moses is like, no, don't send me. God answered, I will be with you, and this is your sign that I am the one who has sent you. When you have brought the people out of Egypt, you will worship God at this very mountain. And so now, 2 months after leaving Egypt, they are back at the mountain where God had originally commissioned Moses and said, I'm going to send you out. You're going to get my people. You're going to bring them out. And when you do, you will come to this spot again, and you will worship me here. So kind of cool. God has, again, consistent. God has done exactly what he said he will do, what he will do in the manner that he said he would do it. There was no... God is fully in control of this situation, and he's working the plan out just like he said he would. So for 2 months, God has been leading them in a pillar of cloud and fire, right? For 2 months, they've been seeing God leading them in this way. In those 2 months, they've crossed the Red Sea. They've been led by that cloud. They've seen 2 miracles involving water, one water being made fresh and one water being provided, like in a huge way. They've been supplied with miracle bread every day from the point that it started. Every day since the manna started, it continued consistently from that point on. They've also been attacked by the Amalekites in here. We skipped over, and they were miraculously protected. That's the one where Moses raises his staff, and they're like, whoa, look, now we're winning. And then he lowers the staff, and oh, no, we're starting to lose. And they see an actual, not just correlation, but causation. It was, hey, this is how this is working. God is fighting for us. And when Moses lowers the staff, God stops, and God shows that I am the one protecting you. I'm the one leading us. So they've seen miracle after miracle after miracle in this 2-month stint. In a short amount of time, that's a lot of miracles going on. That's kind of been happening this whole time here. And now they're at the base of Mount Sinai. That's kind of the destination they've been going to as far as the people are concerned. Then Moses, in verse 3, then Moses climbed the mountain to appear before God. The Lord called to him from the mountain and said, give these instructions to the family of Jacob. Announce it to the descendants of Israel. You have seen what I did to the Egyptians. You know how I carried you on eagle's wings and brought you to myself. Now if you will obey me and keep my covenant, you will be my own special treasure from among all the peoples on earth. For all the earth belongs to me. And you will be my kingdom of priests, my holy nation. This is the message you must give to the people of Israel. I like how he kind of presents himself. God is a good orator. I like that, how he just kind of comes in with authority. Of like kind of a lot of these, like in Gladiator, there's a couple lines in there where the guy like presents himself. Is it Maximus Aurelius? I don't know his name. There's a really good quote where he says, this is who I am, and he kind of lays out his title, and God does that really well. I like it when he kind of puts that out there, like, hey, you've seen what I've done. I am the God of Jacob, I'm the God of Isaac. But you've seen my power to fight for you, right? You've seen my power to fight for you and bring you out of Egypt. You've seen my power to provide for you and protect you, right? So not only have I wrestled you from Egypt and totally destroyed them, I've also sustained you as a nurturing, loving God, providing you with water, providing you with food every day, just taking care of you. I've taken you out of Egypt like on the wings of eagles. So like if you picture us an eagle flying, soaring gracefully above, like no troubles around, like that's the way that I just took you out. You've seen me in that. It's my desire that you be my representatives to the rest of the world, right? He's kind of presenting this thing. And then we get to this covenant that he presents in verse 5. Now, if you will obey me and keep my covenant, you will be my own special treasure from among the peoples on earth, for all the earth belongs to me. You'll be my kingdom of priests. So that is it. He said, I'm making a covenant with you. I'm going to be making a covenant with you, an actual like what you call it? A contract. There's going to be a contract here. And unlike with Abraham, where we'd say that's an unconditional covenant, where God just says, here's what I'm going to do, Abraham. Here's things that will be true. I say it, and that's it. I'm going to turn you into a great nation. I'm going to bless all the nations of the world through you. I'm going to give you this land. Things I'm going to do, that's my covenant with you, Abraham. Unconditional. This is different. If you will obey me, then I will be doing these things with you. We're going to see that covenant reiterated and built up more in the coming bit here, but a conditional covenant now God is offering with the people of Israel. An if-then relationship. Just kind of interesting there as he's presenting himself to them as their God, right? They're still getting to know Yahweh. They're still getting to know the God of their ancestors in a real way. And now he's stepping in and saying, I want you to be my priests. I want you to be my representatives. I want that for you. I also have expectations for you guys. If you want to bask in the blessing that I'm offering, I do have expectations for you as well. That's going to be part of this. Kind of an interesting thing there. And we really want to keep that in mind as God is engaging with the Jews in the Old Testament. The New Testament hasn't happened yet. So we do want to keep in mind, he's presenting himself and he's going to build up to later on here, but we don't want to take some of that other stuff back in here. What's being offered here right now isn't grace. What's being offered here is law. He's going to be presenting a law-based system, and it has a purpose to it, and we don't want to conflate those two or else it gets very confusing later on here. So he's presenting a conditional relationship. You want blessing from me? You want a good relationship with me? I'm actually going to be having some expectations from you here. Because he's trying to teach them some things. We don't want to jump right to like, oh yeah, that's just like John 3:16. No, it's not, actually. He's teaching them something different over here for good reason. So we'll keep going here in Exodus 19, do 7 and 8. So Moses gets that from God. So Moses returned from the mountain and called together the elders of the people and told them everything the Lord had commanded him. And all the people responded together, we will do everything the Lord has commanded. So Moses brought the people's answer back to the Lord. A couple things here. One, for me, I was shocked at my own, I don't know if you call it ignorance, because I think I knew it and then forgot it, but sure, ignorance. I was like, okay, this is Mount Sinai where Moses goes up and he gets the Ten Commandments and comes down. And like, I was just wrong. Moses goes up and down the mountain like 6 times, 7 times in this thing. Like, it wasn't the event that I was expecting. I was like, wait a second. Oh, he went up. Wait, he went back down. Okay, now he's back down again. And it was like, okay, there was actually this was a much longer thing than I thought. And there's more of a dialogue going on, which was just cool for me. It's like, oh, okay, how did I miss this before it didn't stick? So Moses goes up, talks to God, goes back down. It's still going on in that way. And boy, we see another example of typical human nature. So Jews had a very high opinion of themselves, right? God says, hey, I'm going to have a covenant for you. I'm going to have expectations. If you will obey me and keep my covenant, then you will be my people. Then we will do everything that you say. I don't even like, Mark, will you do, then like, I'm going to ask you to do something, and I want you to promise. Yeah, there you go. Like, that's like the first rule of anything, right? Will you sign here? Tell me what the expectation is. First, I want to know, am I even able to do it? Second, I want to know if I agree with it or not. But they're like, no. Whatever God is going to ask of us to do, we can do it, and we will do it. God, we are your people. You came to the right folks here. We are the ones. We are your chosen people for good reason, God. We will do everything you're going to say, whatever it is. That's a lofty opinion of oneself, to say that whatever God is going to ask of me, I am equipped and ready to do it without fail, right? Yes, I will do that. An interesting look into the heart of the people there. And especially we know, I would call that a fairly unwarranted response. Like, have you seen yourselves in the past 2 months? Have you seen your interaction with God thus far has not been smooth, right? You've kind of turned on him a lot, and we know from earlier on, we skipped over the passage, but Moses' father-in-law comes and visits Moses during the time as they're traveling through. They kind of go through his territory, and they meet up, and Moses, it says, Moses spends all day from sunrise to sunset sitting over the people, arbitrating over the constant conflicts that they're having amongst themselves, which, I mean, there's 2.5 million people, so there's going to be conflict, but these are people that are arguing with God, they're arguing with each other constantly, and in the midst of all of that, God says, hey, I'm going to have some expectations for you, and they're like, yep, totally ready to handle that. We can do this. It's like, God, okay, can you get a little bit of self-awareness, right? But again, I say that about them. It's really myself is right there in the picture. These are sinful people who do not have a good understanding of their own sin. That's right. God is introducing himself to these people. He's also going to be introducing these people to themselves. Like, God knows what he's dealing with. He knows the depravity of man. These guys don't. They know the depravity of the Egyptians, those big bad Egyptians, those evil other people. But we are good people. God's going to be showing them over the next several hundred years. No, that's actually not the case. When we were amongst the Iski, we started up a little medical dispensary. I was kind of the one in charge of that. And so what we ended up getting was, well, lots of sick people, but also skin issues, lots of skin. We were in the tropics. We were in a jungle swamp. Bacteria just thrives. It was like a petri dish. Just every bacteria loved where we lived, and there happened to be people there, so that didn't work out well. But what we would get is, so a kid, the super common one that we get, a kid or a grown-up, they get a mosquito bite. So a mosquito bites you, and you scratch it, and you scratch it, and you scratch it, and then it opens up, and you're scratching with your dirty hand on your dirty skin in your dirty environment, and you're not covering it, and flies are getting on it. And so what was a freckle of a mosquito bite, just a mosquito bite, would turn into, I'm not joking, sores that big, a 1/4 inch deep, full of, the word we'd use for it is just soup. It was full of goop and blood, and eventually you could dig down and find the meat of it was this disgusting thing, and it was, by and large, totally preventable. It was bad hygiene practices that were bringing this about, and it was constant. You'd see kids, especially, be around just covered in these things. There was one time stand out in particular to me. It wasn't our people group. It was a neighboring people group. A family line came in, and they had probably 3 or 4 kids with them and probably 5 adults. And again, it's not bashing. It just is. This is the situation, and I feel like it's fair to talk about it. They came in, and it was so oppressively smelly. Like, not just, it was like soap hasn't touched these bodies, I don't know, we're talking definitely weeks. Fish, smoke, sweat, just fill. So they come in the dispensary, it's this little thatched hut, and it's like, whoa, wow, the air just got like hard to breathe. It's that level of pungent odor. And then we're talking open wounds. I think 3 of the kids had these huge wounds. One of them had like 4 all over him. So like, hey, what do we do with this? I'm like, okay. So that, I don't know if you guys know, rotting flesh has an odor. That's in itself pretty stinky, to use like a playful word. It was really bad. So it's really bad smelling. So one of the things I'm like, okay, this isn't, I don't want to just fix stuff. I want to try to equip, I want to teach so this is stop happening, because this is a preventable thing. So like, okay, well, it's important that I'm talking to the folks in the trade language. Hey, so what, like, we need to, one of the big things that's important is when you get a little cut, or when you get a wound, you need to keep it clean. And they're like, oh yeah, totally. No, yeah, we do that. Like, we're not talking about the same thing. Like, no, see, we put a leaf over it. Like, yeah, but how long has that sore been there? Well, 2 months. It started off as this little thing. Now it's been there for 2 months. So we've got this leaf over it, keeping it clean. Like, okay, let's back up. Let me explain what clean means. Let me explain what actually this would look like and we call it a teachable moment. Our doctor over there taught me this is a great time. Someone's going to listen a lot better when you're holding them down, digging out their wound, and they're screaming and crying. Now their ears are open to, do you want to not have this happen again? Here's how you can avoid this next time. Do you want to listen to me? I want to listen to you. And I'd actually be really gentle. I was a pansy with that. I hated this stuff. I was way nicer than a doctor would have been cleaning it out. But talking with these folks, it was one of those, it highlighted for me, wow, they're talking, their idea of cleanliness in regards to hygiene is so different from mine. They're like, no, we are clean. We're not like covered in mud. We're clean. And I'm like, you guys are so dirty. Like there's these things about you that are just absolutely filthy. And again, not a slam to the people. It's just an ignorance thing there. There's stuff they didn't know, but it was the reality. Filthiness. And so, I had to try to engage them and bring that out a little bit. I wanted to help them be more aware of, here's an actual standard of cleanliness. You're not measuring up. And I tried to do it kindly. We're getting there with this situation here. God has standards that the Jews are completely ignorant of. They have no idea. I'm gonna put some laws down. I'm gonna put some expectations down for you. Oh yeah, totally. We're right with you, God. It's like, okay, you don't know what I'm talking about yet, and I'm gonna try to explain this to you later on. But God knows what He's dealing with here, and we just see the Jews don't. There's a cluelessness. There's a self-aggrandizing. They think they're doing pretty good, We're gonna see that. All right, so we keep on going. Verse 9, Exodus 19, verse 9. Then the Lord said to Moses, I will come to you in a thick cloud, Moses, so the people themselves can hear me when I speak with you. Then they will always trust you. Moses told the Lord what the people had said. Hey, they said, they'll do everything you're going to tell them. Then the Lord told Moses, "Go down and prepare the people for my arrival. Consecrate them today and tomorrow and have them wash their clothing. Be sure they are ready on the third day, for on that day the Lord, Yahweh, will come down on Mount Sinai as all the people watch. Mark off a boundary all around the mountain. Warn the people, be careful. Do not go up on the mountain or even touch its boundaries. Anyone who touches the mountain will certainly be put to death. No hand may touch the person or animal that crosses the boundary. Instead, stone them or shoot them with arrows. They must be put to death. However, when the ram's horn sounds a long blast, then the people may go up to the mountain." So Moses went down to the people. He consecrated them for worship, and they washed their clothes. He told them, "Get ready for the third day, and until then abstain from having sexual intercourse." So God is, again, presenting himself to the people, right? So far they've seen him in his miraculous deeds. They've seen him in his miracles. He has Moses do these acts. Hey, Moses, raise your staff so they can see the causation here. You did this thing, and the power of God performed this miracle. Now it happens as he's revealing himself to them. There's been a cloud going before them at a distance. It's like, okay, I'm going to show you more of myself, and I'm going to do it visually. I'm actually going to come down on the mountain, and they will be able to see, all of the people will be able to see me in a form coming to meet with them. And what I thought was really cool reading this is the people have just said, "We're ready to be your people. We're ready to do whatever it is you have for us." And God says, "Okay, clean yourselves up, wash all your clothes for 2 days, get yourselves ready to meet with me. And when I come, you are not worthy to come near me." At your very best, at your cleanest, at your most presentable state, Israel, all of you, better not cross this line, because you guys are not worthy to be interacting with me. I'm not going to come among you, and we're not going to have a little powwow and get together. I'm going to come, and there's a distance here. I'm going to come, and you are separate from me. I'm choosing to interact with you. You can't come near me. You're not worthy. I thought that was really impressive, just that idea of, hey, get yourselves ready, but don't come near. Even washed and prepared, you're not good enough to be near me. And this was one of those, once again, where I was trying to just, as I'm reading through the story, to remember that I am on the side of Israel in this. When I read this story, if you were to take Seth, me, put me back in this time, where would I fit in the story? I wouldn't be with Moses going at having this special thing going up with God. If you took, okay, pretend Jesus hasn't happened yet, right? Pretend nothing has changed. Me in my natural human state, a child of Adam, I would be with Israel. If I was standing there with them, God would be saying, "Okay, Seth, don't come near me. You are a child of Adam. You're cut off from me. I'm coming here. Give some space, because if you cross this line, they're going to kill you." In other passages, if they don't kill you, I'm going to kill you. Like, you're not going to be allowed to cross this line here. The idea that we're ever in a position to make demands of God or stand as a judge of God, that's not a biblical concept. Like, we do that. Well, if God is real, then he better do this thing. Well, I don't like what God did back there. And that's actually something that comes up often when I'll talk with people. Jesus, a lot of people like Jesus. The form of God that is presented in the New Testament, he's pretty nice. He's pretty forgiving. He's pretty gracious. He's a good guy. Old Testament God, got some problems. A lot of people stand in judgment of Old Testament God. They don't like this guy. That's the way it's been communicated to me often. Yeah, I don't like the Old Testament thing. I'll read the New Testament, that's cool, but Old Testament God, I don't like that. He comes across as kind of harsh. He comes across as a God who says, you have problems, you're not worthy, you're not able to be with me. There's actually a barrier here. But that is what God presents. That is how God presents himself to us. I am Yahweh, the holy, righteous God. Stand above my creation. The whole world is mine, and you got issues. You're not able to meet with me here. And then the idea of just the abstinence thing, we know from Scripture, it's not because sex is bad. It would just be, hey, I want this time set apart. I want this to be a holy interaction. Holy, the idea being set apart, right? I want you guys for the next 2 days thinking about what's coming up. You're meeting with me, not thinking about your wife, not thinking about your husband, not thinking about your boyfriend, whatever. I want you thinking about me. We're not going to be together because I'm going to be meeting with God soon. It was just get your mind, and that would be like fasting, basically, with food. Same thing. When you feel the hunger pangs, I want you to think of this thing. Not as big of a deal. That was a bigger deal on the ISTE because they had a lot of thoughts with that. Exodus 19:16. Yep, we'll do a couple more. It says it's going to go kind of fast this morning. I love this passage. This is really good. Again, reading through it, this is more of an event than I gave it credit for in my memory. On the morning of the third day, thunder roared and lightning flashed, and a dense cloud came down on the mountain. There was a long, loud blast from a ram's horn, and all the people trembled. Moses led them out from the camp to meet God, and they stood at the foot of the mountain. All of Mount Sinai was covered with smoke because the Lord had descended on it in the form of fire. The smoke billowed into the sky like smoke from a brick kiln, and the whole mountain shook violently. As the blast of the ram's horn grew louder and louder, Moses spoke, and God thundered his reply. The Lord came down on the top of Mount Sinai and called Moses to the top of the mountain. So Moses climbed the mountain. That is super impressive. Like, that is a spectacle. That is shock and awe, right? That wasn't the misty mountains. It's not the Smoky Mountains of Tennessee, right? Oh, look, that's kind of pretty. Like, oh, cool, sunset. No, this is like a big event. And the fact that it even says it wasn't just smoke from a fire. It wasn't like, oh, there's a brush fire on the mountain. Like from a brick kiln. I don't know if you guys, it's saying like from a smokestack. Like, it's belching out smoke. I don't know if you guys have ever burned plastic before. Probably not, because you're, good at nature-loving Americans. I've done it. And, you see the smoke of like that just dark black smoke, and that's what you see often with a smokestack type thing, which is what he's describing. An intense thing. It's an unnatural sight here. There's lightning, there's thunder, there's fire, there's smoke, there's cloud, there's earthquake, there's this sound of a trumpet just blasting, and it wasn't like, God's coming. It was like more like an air raid. Right? Because it's getting louder and louder and louder. Like it keeps going in the midst of all of this stuff. This is a presentation. Like, God knows how to present himself. This is a big thing going on here. And there was no question they were meeting with a divine being here, right? This, again, hey, in two days, on the third day, I'm going to be coming. He came. I didn't know. When did he come? When was that? I know it was when the mountain exploded. When the whole thing went up, and we know this type of thing was going on for a while. Like this mountain was just kind of engulfed in smoke and flame and fire for a very long time, actually. And then God talks with Moses. And this again. So Moses has gone up, talked to God, gone back down. Now he's going back up and talking to God again. God just called him up in the mountain. So God has presented himself to Israel, right? He's showing and it's on a mountain, so the whole nation is seeing this. They've all come close. They're seeing this mountain exploding. Not exploding, but you know what I mean. It's cataclysmic. They're seeing this. Moses goes up, getting the message from God, and here's the message, which I'd forgotten. Like, I thought this was great. Then the Lord told Moses, "Go back down and warn the people not to break through the boundaries to see the Lord, or they will die. Even the priests who regularly come near to the Lord must purify themselves so that the Lord does not break out and destroy them." "But Lord," Moses protested, "the people cannot come up to Mount Sinai. You already warned us. You told me, mark off a boundary all around the mountain, set it apart as holy." But the Lord said, "Go down and bring Aaron back with you. In the meantime, do not let the priests or the people break through to approach the Lord, or he will break out and destroy them." So Moses went down to the people and told them what the Lord had said. So God says, hey, tell the people when I come, there's a distance here. You're separate from me. I am God. You are these sinful people. And then God comes in his show of force, in his show of grandeur, and he says, boom, I'm here. Moses goes up to be like, oh, we're meeting with God. And he's like, hey, get away. Just to clarify, I'm here. We're not on good terms as far as we're not buddy-buddy. Like, the first message I have for you is you're distant. The first message I have for you is you are not worthy to be in my presence. The first message I have is we are separate. I'm here among you, not because everything's great. I'm here among you and everything's not great. You need to be some distant here. You are not worthy. Well, I already told them that. Tell them again. Tell them again that they're not worthy. Yes, go back down. Moses, go walk back down the mountain and tell them again that they're not worthy. I just thought that was really interesting. And here's their first interaction. That'd be like an awkward meeting. Hey, Mark. Oh, you're not shaking my hand? I'm not going to shake your hand. Ask me again. You want to shake your hand? I'm not going to shake your hand. Oh, okay. You're making this weird. I thought we were meeting. We are meeting, and there's an issue here. It is super awkward when there's a visible tension between two people. And we're actually just going to stop the story there because it jumps into then we're going to be getting into the law and the Ten Commandments. And that's kind of a bigger one. And so instead of making this super duper long, I was like, well, let's keep this one a little bit shorter. But I was really enjoying, as I'm reading through this and seeing God's interaction, especially seeing it is a longer thing than I remembered. Like this whole Moses going up and down and talking and stuff. And it really gets good in the next section, which we all know about. But boy, humans tend to have an inflated sense of self-worth, right? If you don't accept me at my worst, you don't deserve me at my best. Anybody ever heard that stupid meme? It's a thing. Like it's kind of like, oh, because I am valuable, I am awesome. You don't deserve me. No, that's a human thing. We have this idea, especially in the West, of self-esteem is so important to us that who I am, it drives me nuts because of marketing. You hear this in commercials. You're worth it because you deserve it. Buy our product. Like you, of all people, definitely deserve the thing that I have because you're super duper special. Treat yourself. It's like, okay, that's a human thing. Yes, I'm worthy. Yes, I'm deserving. Not really what we're seeing here. God accepts me just the way I am, or God should accept me just the way I am. That's another one we would have. Like, oh, that's the relation with God. Of course, God loves me because. Have you seen me? Like, I got quirks, I got issues, but kind of amazing. And we wouldn't often say it quite so overtly, but that is like, oh, God accepts me just the way I am. Yeah, that's not what I just saw in this. Like, God accepting of humanity in their fallen Adamic state, right? Not quite there. The Bible would offer a different sort of interaction here, a different sort of value structure. We do not deserve God's favor or attention. And again, me as I'm reading this, I'm like, and me individually as Seth, I am like the children of Israel. Like that's where I would fit into this story. I am the nation of Israel. I'm faithless. I'm sinful. I'm deserving of wrath. That's what I bring to this interaction. And then God brings his grace and stuff. And like I said, that reality is one of the big issues that we have with the God of the Bible as a culture, as a nation, as just humanity. We don't like this sort of stuff. That's why we often don't want to be reading the Old Testament. I don't like that judgy stuff. God, you're making me feel weird. You're making me feel inadequate. Good. Good. That's what you should be feeling. When we get together, you should be feeling inadequate when you're looking at what you present, Seth, to the table. And then, so that was like kind of on the judgy side. I was like, wow, you know what? I really do need to appreciate where I am in this, because we start over here. We're in the New Testament. Right? We know Jesus. We know the story that's coming. So we have this different relationship with God, but we don't want to forget where we started or where we are on our own as people. We're back here. Like by God's grace, the story goes on, and there's more truths for us to understand, but I don't want to just skip over this so quickly. And then I'm going to cheat a little bit. I said we're going chronologically, so we're hanging out in the Old Testament. But as I was reading this, it just really stood out to me the difference of my current present-day experience and how I think of God and how we start off our morning here talking with God. And every one of us can do that. And every one of us, I would hope, is freely engaging with the God that here says, I'm going to talk he's going to be talking to the whole people pretty soon. But hey, when I come and talk with you, huge gap, huge separation. You are not worthy to be interacting with me. Don't even try or I'm going to kill you. And that's not the experience that I have right now. Like, wow, that contrast was just highlighted for me. As I'm seeing the Old Testament story here, I just kept thinking over and over of the New Testament stuff. So you want to go quickly to Romans 5. This is the one that jumped out to me. Because like, wow, this is just not what I standing here this morning. Like, that's not how I'm engaging with God. Well, why? Romans 5:1, therefore, since we have been made right in God's sight by faith, we have peace with God because of what Jesus Christ our Lord has done for us. Because of our faith, Christ has brought us into this place of undeserved privilege where we now stand and we confidently and joyfully look forward to sharing God's glory. What a difference there. I mean, the contrast is so huge. And what I was really enjoying was, as I'm looking at this story, it was highlighting the I don't know, what's the thing where like every generation, what my parents had is my expectation of, oh, that's what life should be, and maybe I'll try to have a little bit more than that. And then my kids will be like, oh, that's what we had, and so my expectation is like my baseline is I grew up Jesus was what I was hearing about right from the time I was this little kid. Jesus, grace, love, fellowship with God. Like that's what it's kind of my expectation. Oh, of course I have a relationship with God because that's what life is. Not always. Jesus brought us to this point of undeserved favor, right? I'm at a place where I can stand boldly before the throne of God and talk to him as a friend and a father and Jesus as a brother. That's not what has always been. And it just kind of highlighted, well, I'm living in grace. I'm living in this amazing, incredible time in history where I have this access to God. And I think I just quoted it, but go to Hebrews 4:16. Similar thing. It's contrasting actually quite a bit about the Hebrews in this time. Like back then it was like this, now it's like this. It's kind of what's going on in Hebrews in this section. So let us come boldly to the throne of our gracious God. There we will receive his mercy, and we will find grace to help us when we need it most. As now New Testament believers, Jesus having done what he's going to do, which we're not in the story, I'm messing up the whole way that I'm going about this, but knowing what Jesus has done, I can boldly come before God. I can boldly come right up to him and stand in his presence, right? Not be kneeling, not be bowing, not be fearful, oh God, that you are so high. I mean, he is, but he said, no, I have made it so that you can boldly come and stand before me as my son and talk with me, and I want that. I want that fellowship. Whoa, this is so cool to see the juxtaposition of these two things, the contrast of these two realities here of what was true and as God was interacting here, now post promise being fulfilled, the deliverer having come, what God was able to accomplish and what the reality is for us now. I was like, that is so cool. But what was standing out is to fully appreciate that salvation, first I've got to fully appreciate the reality of my fallen state. Like if I'm not going to acknowledge how cut off I am, how deserving of wrath I am, then this thing that Jesus offers really isn't that impressive. I just say, well, of course, Jesus should do that for me because, that God's good and he should do this for me. Well, that really diminishes the value of the grace type of thing. It was cool for me. I was enjoying that. Yeah, and that was pretty much where I'll leave it for those. And we are stopping really halfway through. It's kind of like, now God's like, I'm here and I'm going to tell you. I'm like, okay, lesson's over. Ta-da, that was it. That was the end for today. But the next chunk is just fairly big and powerful, and I want to let that stand alone because it is a culminating type of thing. Actually, after next week's lesson, we're going to really start jumping through the Old Testament because that's kind of one of the pivot points of God's interaction with man. And then there's lots of fluffy details that goes on through that, but we're going to start really jumping some books and things. God presenting himself at Mount Sinai is often referred back to throughout the New Testament as one of the key points of God laying the framework for how he's going to be dealing with humanity.